All right, welcome back to HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball and the NBA draft inside and out. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Today, I'm joined by Caleb Slaton. Caleb, how you doing?
Oh, I'm super excited to be here. Super excited. I think this Big Ten conference is probably one of the deepest in the top five this year, so I'm excited to dig into it.
All righty. Before we actually move on to our Big Ten preview, we have two Big Ten guests today, and one is Jamison Battle, formerly started at George Washington, went home to play for the University of Minnesota, and now is going to finish up at Ohio State. Great shot creator, scorer, and I interviewed Jamison a few days ago, and we'll roll that interview right now. All righty, our first guest today is Ohio State wing, Jamison Battle. Jamison played 2 years at George Washington and then 2 years at Minnesota. And over that span, he was an all-rookie selection in 2020, an all-A10 selection in 2021, an all-Big Ten honorable mention in 2022, and an all-Big Ten academic selection in 2023. He has averaged at least 12 points per game in each of his 4 collegiate seasons, averaging 14.4 points and 5.2 rebounds per game for his career. Jamison, welcome to the show. How you doing today? You look very, very smart today in that suit.
Thank you. No, I'm doing well here at Media Day back home in Minneapolis. So doing well.
All right. I know you're short on time, so I'm going to dive right into it. I assume you had plenty of options for your graduate season. What attracted you to Ohio State?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was, I wanted to turn pro last year, and understanding the year I had, I looked at it and it was like, there's a lot of left out there. And I looked at this 5th year as a luxury, understanding that I played 4 years in college and that, this COVID year, why not use it? And I think Ohio State's the biggest thing is that you want to go where you're wanted. And from the first phone call I had with Coach Holden and Coach P, I immediately knew I was wanted here, and there was a role I could fill. And then seeing the way that they finished last year was really special, and understanding that there's a lot of young guys here. And as someone who's been in college for 4 years, and seeing that I can come in and try to help lead this team and try to contribute to winning is really what I wanted out of it. And I think the biggest thing for me in coming back in this 5th year is trying to make the tournament and contribute to winning. Because if you look at the past 4 years, I haven't done it. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, coming from a high school who won a state championship my senior year and who's been accustomed to winning. I think, I just want to go out here and contribute to winning.
All righty. So you mentioned the youth on the team. I'd say the majority are underclassmen on the team. So are you the OG of the Buckeyes?
Man, I mean, I guess you could say that, but with this group of guys, I don't feel 22. I don't feel like a 5th year senior. I feel like I'm someone who's maybe a junior out here, maybe a sophomore. So there's a lot of young guys. There's a lot of energy in the locker room, and it's just a great group of guys that we have, and guys who are willing to go out here and compete for one another and hold each other accountable. It's something that you don't see with a lot of teams, and I think that's something that's really special about this group.
Okay. And, beside your experience, what do you think the greatest asset, you bring to this team?
Yeah, I think, like you said, obviously experience, but I think just my shooting as well, and understanding that I played in the Big Ten for 2 years and what I can do to, create an open shot for myself and also create an open shot for others is something that, I pride myself on. And then just, I've been working with coach and different coaches here on staff just to improve my defense and my rebounding, because in that end, that's how I can help contribute to winning on defense and then rebounding. So like you said, experience number 1, leadership number 2 as well, just to be able to come in here, be an older guy and be a leader. But also, these younger guys are leading me at times too, because, I'm new to Ohio State and they have the experience of being here and understanding what the culture is and what the family aspect is like here at Ohio State. So I think there's a lot of things that I can help this team. But like you said, I'm just out here trying to contribute to winning and help this team go far.
Right. Last season, the Buckeyes they featured a freshman, Bryce Sensabaugh, who was a walking bucket. And you guys have different body types, but in a lot of ways, he had a similar game. He loved the mid-range jumpers. You're excellent at mid-range jumpers. He can create his own shot. You're excellent at creating your own shot. So, Bryce has moved on to the NBA. You're a 3-level scorer. I would imagine you're going to take over as the go-to guy. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think, I wouldn't say that's the plan, because I think there's a lot of good players on this team with guys like Bruce, with guys like Roddy, Zed Peace going back up, and you got Felix Opara, who's really solid. And you got other guys coming in from Penn State who transferred in Dale Bonner. So there's a lot of guys, not to say that, I'm specifically going to take on the role of scoring, because I think anyone on this roster can put up buckets if you really look at it. So, like I said, obviously I am a good scorer and I am a good shooter, but I think the biggest thing for me is just understanding, whatever coach wants me to do that day, I'm going to do it, and to the highest level. And I think just being at my best when it's required is something that I'm going to live by this year. And then, like I told you, I just care about winning in the end.
Right. The incoming freshman class features 3 top 50 guys. Has one, over the summer and now in practice, has one freshman particularly impressed you and made you think, well, he looks like ready to make big contributions right away?
Yeah, I think all of them have done well in their own aspect. You got Payson, obviously being from Minnesota. I kind of have a bone to pick with him him beating my high school back-to-back years in the state championship. But he's looked really good. You got guys like the local kid Devin Roy, who's looked really good, and then Austin Parks, another Ohio kid, who's looked really good. But I think Scotty Middleton's looked really, really good. Understanding what he's done and when he played at Sunrise, what he did there, and then what he's done, and just the energy and level he brings to this team. And he's never really had a bad day, and that's what I love about him. He's always going to go out here and compete and challenge one another, and that it's really special out of a freshman. You don't see that a lot, so you can tell he's been a lot of places and understands what it takes to win.
Right. So you referenced this at the top. You had a tremendous season in 2021 for the Gophers. You averaged over 17 points per game. You shot 45% from the floor. But just before the start of last season, you had certain foot surgery, and you never seemed to regain your form. You weren't nearly as efficient as the season before. Did you come back too soon, or was there a lot more to it than just the injury?
Yeah, I think the injury did play a factor, but I'm not going to sugarcoat things and say that, the injury was why I performed bad. I think there was a lot of stuff I was going through mentally as well. I think, being at home, you can sometimes fall into distractions, but again, that's not an excuse. So, I think the injury did have a factor, but, I just wasn't myself out there last year. And I think a lot of people saw that and a lot of people could tell, but, it's no excuse. And I think I've worked my tail off this spring and this summer just to get back to where I was that year before. And I think, just continuing to grind, continuing to understand and take care of your body. That's important. I think, like you said, having that injury, it was tough, but, I think, like I said, it's just taking care of business and keep working.
Right. Are you feeling good now? Everything cool?
Oh yeah, feeling great. Yep. Foot's good. Got mobility. And then, I think just what we've done at Ohio State with the strength and conditioning program, and then also just the rehabilitation program too, just to keep my body fresh and to keep everyone else's body fresh. It's a really good program.
Alrighty. And the Buckeyes themselves, had some injury concerns last year, starting with Sensabaugh and Zedke. Is the team healthy right now?
Oh yeah, team's healthy. Everyone's looking good. Zed's looking really good. They lost a lot of weight. Felix put on some weight too. So we're looking to capitalize off of last year and understand how they finished and bring that right back into the season. I know you see our schedule, who we're playing, so we're really excited just to go out here and have opportunities to compete at the highest level and just to go out here and win games.
So you're going to go 10 deep this year, but the team is young. The Buckeyes missed the tournament last year. What gives you confidence this year that you can get back to the tournament and even do some significant damage there?
I think it's just the experience that we have. Those guys who were on the roster last year, Coach Holtman talks about it as scars. Those scars that they suffered, and understanding that, it maybe wasn't the best year that they had last year, but, they've learned from it. And I'm a guy as well who's learned from losses and learned from, playing in tough games, playing in, losing seasons. So I think just the experience and the talent that we bring back, and just the hunger that every guy on this roster has. Like you said, we could probably go 10 deep. So it'll be interesting to see just, everyone out there, how hungry we are. I think we're going to be probably one of the most hungry teams in the country after what happened last year. And I think just the commonality we have, it's just the common goal that we all have, just to be at our best and just to go out here and win games and, try to make a run at the tournament, try to make a run at the Big Ten championship, and try to make a run in March Madness. So it's exciting times in Columbus. And I think, the decision to come to Ohio State was the right one for me. And I think there's a lot of talent on this roster to hopefully get back in the tournament.
Yeah. I got one more question for you. It's a fun one. Do you have time for it?
Oh yeah, let's go.
All right. So I hear you you're an avid saxophone player. And I was curious. I don't know. I've never heard you play, and I'm not sure how advanced you are. So I was just curious, when your basketball career is all said and done, do you have plans to pursue that or be in the music industry, or do you have other plans?
Man, I wish. I think I wouldn't say I'm a great saxophonist, but I'm pretty good. I think that's the one thing I've really improved on from when my time was from middle school to high school. When I was in high school, I would always play. There's this app we had that was Smart Music. It was called Smart Music. A bunch of different songs on there, and that's how they tracked if we were practicing or not. So there were days where I'd just go on to play for a couple hours each day, just because sick of video games maybe, or didn't have any other homework. So I'd look at it. It'd be pretty cool to go up there on stage and perform. But I think once basketball's over, I'll probably put the saxophone down as well. It's something that I can have under, like I had it under my bed, and
Right.
when I was injured last year and just was playing it at times. But I think I'll take a break with the saxophone after.
All right. So you just use it for relaxation more than anything.
Oh yeah. It's just something I can pick up, play when I'm bored. I haven't taken it as serious as I had. I think I stopped. So I was in the school band from 5th grade to 10th grade, and I made the switch from alto saxophone to baritone saxophone. I want to say my 8th grade year. So I was really serious about it 8th through 10th grade. I was playing in the pep band at football games, at women's basketball games. So I was very in tune with it. But in the end, I think I haven't lost some skill, but it's not the same as I was back in the day.
It's just like anything, you got to stay on top of it. And,
Oh, yeah.
and a nice pun there. You said you had to stay in tune with it.
Oh yeah. You see
it. All right, Jamison, I want to thank you for joining us today. I know you have a busy day, and I want to wish you and the team the best. And I hope you come back after the season and let us know what's next for you.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Let's stay in touch.
Oh yeah, take it easy.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we're going to move on to our conference previews. And as always, we always start off by kind of reviewing what went down the season before. Caleb and I are going to split up our review of last season. Caleb, I'm going to let you handle the stats part. If you get tired, just raise your hand. Because we got all kinds of interesting tidbits about what went down last year. All right, so Purdue won the regular season title by 3 games over Indiana and Northwestern. In the Big Ten tourney, Purdue also prevailed against upstart Penn State. Penn State went on a run, and that probably is what got them into the NCAA tournament, was those last few wins in the Big Ten tournament. So Purdue went into the NCAA as a number 1 seed, and they were one of 7 Big Ten teams to make the big dance, with the others being Indiana, 4 seed, Michigan State, 7 seed, Northwestern, 7 seed, Maryland, 8 seed, Iowa, 8 seed, and Penn State, a 10 seed. Purdue would lose in the first round to Fairleigh Dickinson in one of the biggest losses in NCAA history. Michigan State was the only Big Ten team to advance as far as the Sweet 16, extending the conference's string of disappointing performances in March Madness. And we talked about that at the end of last season with Mike DeCourcy, and he has his theories, but we won't go into that. So anyway, in the NIT, 3 NIT teams were, or 3 Big Ten teams were represented. The Badgers fell. Michigan, Rutgers, Wisconsin. Michigan won their first game, lost their second. Rutgers lost in the first round, and Wisconsin went 3-1. The Badgers fell 3 points short of advancing to the championship, losing 56-54 to North Texas, who would go on to win the NIT title. All right, Caleb. You're on. You have the floor, sir.
Top offensive teams in the Big Ten last year were pretty highly ranked as far as the country goes. You've got Iowa coming in number 1 at about 80 points a game, about 18th in the country, and then looks like the top team by efficiency was actually
Iowa
they were
as well, yeah.
Also the top offensively efficient team with about a 112 offensive rating. Purdue was really, really close at a 112 even. Iowa was 112.6. So top 12, top 15 in the country really efficient offensive teams. Fred McCaffrey and Matt Painter know how to get it done on that end. And then some really excellent defensive teams. I think when we think of the Big Ten, that's really where our minds go first. We've got Rutgers allowing just a shade above 61 points a game, which was 11th in Division I, leading the conference. You also have Purdue at 22, Northwestern at 23, Maryland at 28, and Wisconsin at 30th as far as rankings in the country, all in the top 30, all under 64 points a game. And then Rutgers leading the conference in defensive efficiency and 7th in the country. As far as pace is concerned, we've got not a surprise here, honestly, with either one. Iowa leading the conference in pace at about 70 possessions a game. They had the highest average for points per game scored and points per game allowed, having the best offense, not surprising. And then Wisconsin, one of those better defensive teams we mentioned, was the slowest at about 63 possessions, so about the 10th slowest in Division I. As far as just some like really interesting statistics, if we think about the Big Ten, we've got only 2 Big Ten teams to shoot better than 37% from the 3-point line or better. You've got Michigan State at 39%. Whew, that is hot. And Penn State at 38%. Michigan State being 3rd in Division I, Penn State being 9th in Division I. Penn State led the Big Ten in effective field goal percentage at about 55%, 15th in Division I. Purdue, not surprisingly, with Zach Edey down low, led the conference in rebounding percentage and was 1st in the country. Again, not a surprise. Minnesota leading the Big Ten in assist percentage, 63% of their baskets scored on by assists, 9th in Division I. And then Purdue was 2nd. So we had Minnesota with 63% at first, Purdue at 61.3%, 2nd, 13th in Division I. Turnover percentage, Wisconsin topped the conference and the country. Only 11% of their possessions ended in turnover. Minnesota, after leading the Big Ten in assist percentage, also was last in the Big Ten in turnover percentage at 17%. We turn to the defensive end a little bit. We've got Rutgers leading in steal percentage at 13%. And then Northwestern, a close 2nd at 11.8%. Both top 15 in the country for steal percentage, really stingy defenses. And then block percentage down low. We've got Illinois leading the Big Ten in block percentage at 13.8%. Indiana at 13.7%, both in the top 15 in the country. And then Rutgers and Northwestern also had really high block percentages above 12%. So you had that group of 4 really at the top defensively.
Interesting. Purdue's not in there.
I was literally thinking the same thing. Like Zach Edey down low, such an incredible rebounder, but apparently I'd be curious like what opponents shoot at the rim when he's in there. Like even if he's not getting all those blocks, is he still impacting the opponents when they're down there? I would assume so, but
yeah, we could look that up on Synergy.
That we could.
All righty. So we only have one coaching change in the conference, and that was Mike Rhodes from VCU replaces Micah Shrewsbury, who went on to Notre Dame. And we'll talk about the impact of that change when we get to Penn State. All righty. So moving on, we're going to talk about Purdue first. And as always, we're going to talk about the teams and the way they finished last year. Purdue doesn't really lose a ton. Brandon Newman, a nice shooting wing, moved on to Western Kentucky, and David Jenkins, also a solid shooter. He graduated. He was a shooting guard. Of course, Zach Edey comes back, and there's so many categories that he leads this conference. He's the leading returner in this conference, and probably led the conference in that category last year. But we're just talking about who's coming back. I'm not even going to read all the numbers because there's so many. I'll just tell you what categories: points per game, rebounds per game, rebound percentage, usage percentage, player efficiency rating, offensive rating, win shares, and plus minus. He's the leading returner in all those categories. They also have pretty much most of their key players are coming back, including their entire starting lineup. That includes point guard Brandon Smith, was a freshman last year. combo guard Fletcher Lawyer, freshman last year. Mason Gillis, small forward. Caleb First, power forward. Wing Ethan Morton, he's kind of a defensive specialist. Trey Kaufman-Wren, power forward. And the only one who returns, didn't really play last year, was redshirt Cam Hyde. He was last year, he's a wing, and he was a top 150 guy coming out of the recruiting rankings. And lastly, this year, the only significant newcomer they have is Miles Coleman, who's a top 100 guy, and he's a wing. So Purdue basically looking very much like last year. To me, Newman is he was a good player, but I don't see why somebody really can't pick up the slack for him. But I am a little concerned about this team's overall shooting. I would think that, well, I'm going to let you run with that. And then while you're doing that, I'm going to look up these guys' shooting percentages.
I mean, I have them up. I think they've got some some guys that can shoot individually pretty well. If you're looking at shooting percentages, their starting backcourt of Braden Smith and Mason Gillis were both about 35 or 37% from the three-point line. David Jenkins, who played about 15 minutes a game, was 35%. But then you see a pretty stark drop-off. The next two returners after that are Fletcher Lawyer at 32% from three and Ethan Morton at 27% from three. So they've got about three solid three-point shooters. But even those guys, they're shooting a combined 8 threes a game. If your best three-point shooters are only shooting 3 points a game, you're not effectively spreading the floor. You're not creating that space down low. And so that's creating some of those really tight passing windows that you're seeing.
And
they're pressure on Zach Edey.
And they're getting good looks.
Yeah, for them, I think they are for the most part, but I do think you run into this problem of Fletcher Loyal, Braden Smith, and Mason Gillis aren't really breaking people down off the dribble.
No.
And beating people off the dribble. And so you're having to create penetration other ways, whether through ball movement, whether through some sort of pick and roll. I mean, obviously, Zach Edey setting a pick and roll is probably going to create some space for you, but then can you use that advantage to kick it out? I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're getting a ton. Obviously, they're going to be great in the regular season with Zach Edey. How do you game plan for Zach Edey on 2 days? Did poorly, clearly. He's huge, but not great. I think their prospects for the tournament, I personally don't think they're great.
Yeah, I thought they had a chance to go to the Final Four last year, and no one was shocked more than me when they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. And I really think, as much as they said, Edey's numbers, I don't remember in that game. And they weren't spectacular, but, I mean, they were good. I think he had a double-double, and I think he was around 20 and 10. So, some people were saying they didn't get him the ball enough. I don't know. For me, Fletcher Lawyer, his reputation as is like his brother was a shooter.
Yeah.
He took the most threes on this team and he made 33%. That's got to improve. And like you said, not many guys on this team actually shoot it that much. And Braden Smith took less than, very close to 3 a game, and he made 38%. So, but other than that, that's what worries me about this team. And when you look at, a lot of their talent is in First and Kaufman-Wren, and those guys are bigs, and they're non-shooting. They're non-shooting bigs, Yeah. So they're not going to see a lot of playing time with Edey there. I just wish that somehow they had gotten a transfer who was like a killer, knockdown shooter, shot creator, somebody dynamic that could, kind of like when they had, Jaden Ivey, though Jaden Ivey's not the greatest shooter in the world, but but still, I mean, if Jaden Ivey's on this team, we're not doubting how far they're going.
No. I mean, I think they're going to be really good during the regular season. They're so big. They're so consistent. They play exactly how Matt Painter wants them to every game. I don't see them struggling on a night-to-night basis, but I mean, I know it's tough to not project to the Final Four or to the NCAA tournament. I don't see them being able to be a Final Four team again, unless something changes on their ability to create penetration.
Right. All right, so we'll move on to Indiana, and they lose some really key players, including Trace Jackson Davis, who we actually voted here at HP at the end of the season awards that we did as a team. We gave Trace Jackson Davis Player of the Year over Zach Edey, and I can stand by that. But anyway, we'll move on. Jalen Hood-Schifino also moves on to the NBA. Race Thompson, I assume, is going to hook on with a pro team somewhere. And Miller Kopp, a good outside shooter, a wing, graduated. Tamar Bates was a high recruit, never quite worked out at Indiana. He moves on to Missouri. And Jordan Geronimo, who was very athletic, forward, good player at doing the dirty work, kind of like Race Thompson was, but more athletic, I think. He moves on to Maryland. What comes back is Malik Renault. He saw, limited minutes behind Trace Jackson Davis, but I was impressed with his ability to score in the post. I just don't know if he can do anything else. So, and then we have Xavier Johnson, who's coming back for his 13th year. And Xavier, the big knock on him has always been turnovers and an inability to shoot. And I doubt that's changed. I mean, he really I think he's in the 6th year. He had to get a special waiver for the injury, but he's definitely coming back to play point guard. They also have Trey Galloway, who saw decent minutes last year as a combo guard, and Caleb Banks, a pretty high recruit who didn't play a lot last year. He's a sophomore. So then joining the group is Kalel Ware from Oregon, top 10 recruit, 5-star guy, has been knocked for effort. Been knocked for just not being motivated, not playing with high energy level, and not making best use of his tools. But if this guy is motivated, he could be an All-American. They also bring in little scrapping center, and I say little, I mean he's not little, he's like 6'9", 260, but Peyton Sparks, he's undersized for a center, and that's what he is. Also coming in is a nice freshman class, including Mackenzie
Mbaku.
Yeah, right. Mackenzie Mbaku, he was the number 8th recruit in the country. He's a forward, and we'll talk about him a little later. They also have point guard Gabe Cups, top 100 guy. Ja'Kai Newton, a combo guard. He's a top 120 guy. And one more transfer coming in is Anthony Walker, 5th-year guy. Never really got to play a lot in Miami, Florida. But he does have some talent, and he did show here and there. He showed promise. He's not a bad college reserve.
I don't think he's going to get much playing time in Indiana.
No, not with
either.
all these frontline guys now. Yeah. Again, why did he go there?
I don't know, man. Maybe is he from the Midwest? Is he a Midwest guy?
I don't know.
No, he's from Brewster Academy.
Oh, in Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I really like this freshman class. I will say Gabe Cups is from my hometown. He used to be on the same AAU team as Bronny, like in 7th, 8th, and freshman year. So Gabe Cups has been on the national stage for a long time. There's videos of him as like a 14-year-old having 3-point contests with LeBron, and he's this like 5'10" white kid having these 3-point shooting contests with LeBron, which is always fun. So I don't know. I like this team. I like Mbaku. I like Cups. I really like Ja'Kai Newton. Ja'Kai Newton, last time I checked, is out indefinitely.
Yeah.
He had knee surgery. Khalil Ware obviously adds a lot of talent. I think Peyton Sparks might be a better player for Indiana than Khalil Ware. Seeing Khalil play since he went to high school with Nick Smith, and they were on the same high school team. And even then, like all he did was throw down lobs. I think he's got a lot of talent and he's got some potential to stretch the court, but the lack of physicality down low is real from him.
Right.
And I don't know. Obviously, that's not the problem with Peyton Sparks. He's 260. I don't know if that gets fixed in this new situation, but we've seen a couple of situations with Khalil where that's been kind of the same.
Oh yeah,
same thing. Yeah,
I didn't know much about him coming into Oregon. So what else happened? Was he one of these guys jumped high schools every 5 minutes?
No, he was at Little Rock, I think, for at least 2 or 3 years. But I just think even like in the McDonald's games, in the McDonald's practices, not necessarily the games, but in the practices, kind of behind the scenes, or if you look at Hoop Summit, even some of the stuff at Oregon, there was always kind of he got bodied. Effort wasn't always there. I think he's supremely talented. I think he's a slightly underrated passer as well and can really add some versatility to both sides of the court. It's just, does he bring it every play? Is he willing to put in the work to be in the right spot defensively, especially if he's getting strung out into pick and rolls or put into help side rotations? I don't know. We'll see.
What was interesting at Oregon when N'Faly Dante got hurt, he didn't replace him in the starting lineup. It was Nate Biddle.
Yeah.
And Ware, came off the bench, and some nights he would look good, some nights he wouldn't. And he wasn't playing, I don't know, I'm going to take a guess down the stretch, but maybe 15 minutes a game, even though, they only had two bigs.
But I think that speaks to the inconsistency, right?
Right. No, right. It is concerning. So here's a question I have, because this is a team that's definitely top heavy. And unless the freshmen can come along right away, this is going to be a top heavy team. And I'm not overly excited about their starting guards in Xavier Johnson and Trey Galloway. So is it possible that Malik Reneau, Kalia Ware, and Mackenzie Mbako can all play at the same time? Because I know they're all a little different. And Mbako, to me, can play either forward spot. Definitely more of a shooter than Reneau is. Could they play all at the same time?
Yeah, I kind of expect them to. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they go with to start the season.
That's a huge front line.
It's massive. I think Malik Reneau is really good. I think he's probably going to be the best player on the team this year. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. He's a really good passer, both within the interior, from the post, from the high post. And I think they'll probably do some sort of inverted offense with him at the high post a lot, and Khalil Ware in the dunker spot. And then M'Baku is a pretty decent above the break 3-point shooter. He's long, powerful. He doesn't necessarily have the shake side to side to break defenders down, but I think especially if you could get a pump and go situation, he's going to be really good from that aspect. But I think it's pretty realistic. I'm very high on M'Baku. He was a Duke recruit and a Duke commit for a long time, and I was pretty bummed to see him go. I thought he was going to be the best player. He would have been the best player for Duke. Could very well be wrong, but I'm very high on him and think his potential is pretty sky high. I think it'd be great if he could step into being the best player and start to maybe continue to develop his off the dribble game. He's been more of a 4, but like a 4 in like a small ball kind of situation. So I definitely think he could play the 3 as well, and I think that's pretty realistic.
Okay, all right.
I did see Banks. Also, I think Banks could be particularly interesting. Really good athlete. Only played like 6 minutes a game last year, but he shot 40% from 3 for the season. Not on a ton of attempts. The volume is super low, but if that builds into maybe a 15-minute a night guy, could be an addition kind of off the bench on the wing as well.
Okay. One last note on Indiana. Mackenzie Mbako was arrested recently. Apparently he got belligerent at a local Taco Bell, was verbally abusive to employees, and they asked him to leave, and he wouldn't leave. And he was like parked in he was like causing a traffic jam in the drive-through, and the police asked him to leave, and then they wanted him to get out of the car, and he didn't really listen to them. And so finally he locked himself in the car, and they broke his window and unlocked the car and drug him out of the car and then drug him down to jail. All this is pretty much considered a misdemeanor for just being kind of an ass. So I think, maybe he'll get suspended a couple of games, but I don't expect it to have a huge impact on Indiana's season, as long as he doesn't do anything like this again.
I was talking to a friend who went to Indiana, big Indiana basketball friend, and I sent him this story, and his first response was, "Well, I don't blame him. I've been to that Taco Bell. It sucks." So yeah, I don't think this is gonna live very long.
Right. Alrighty, we'll move on to Northwestern. And they lose. They weren't very deep last year, and they lose Chase Audige, a wing, to the NBA or G League. Because I think he was recently cut from an Exhibit 10 contract. He's the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, along with Caleb. Caleb McConnell from Rutgers. So Audige is the departing Defensive Player of the Year, along with Caleb McConnell, who plays for Rutgers. So they also lose Robbie Barron, power forward, to Virginia Tech, and Titus Verhoeven, a power forward, to graduation. Who's coming back? Boo Buie, probably the number one player on this team now, for sure, with Audige gone. They also bring back Brooks Barnheiser, had an impressive freshman season. Ty Berry, combo guard, comes back, and center Matt Nicholson. All four of those guys played a lot of minutes. And the incoming people, I'm not overly excited about. They include shooting guard Ryan Langberg from Princeton, wing Justin Mullins from Denver, Blake Preston, a power forward from Liberty, and freshman point guard Jordan Clayton, who's a top 200 guy. Personally, I feel like this team overachieved last year. I think they'll be, good this year, but you take that they're losing their best defensive player, and they're not really bringing in anybody.
Second leading scorer.
Right. And they're not bringing in anyone overly exciting. And given the fact that I thought they already kind of overachieved last year, I'm personally not overly excited about Northwestern.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be good. They'll be tough. I don't think they're going to be an easy team to play, especially up at home. The guys they're bringing in, none of them wow you, but they all have the potential to be rotation guys, and so maybe one of them blossoms into somebody that is a good scorer next to Boo Buie. I think I saw somewhere where if he averages close to or what he averaged last year, when he averaged 17 and a half a game, he'll finish his career as Northwestern's highest scorer or leading scorer ever.
Okay.
So maybe one of the new guys steps up.
I like Barnheiser. I think Barnheiser's a really good player. And I think he has potential to improve upon that. I think he'll be more of a bigger piece. So now we're going to talk about a team that's right down the road for me, sort of 45 minutes down the road, and that's Rutgers. Rutgers loses 3 of their top 5 players, and the interesting thing about Rutgers is last year, they were kind of an Iron Man team of sorts. And when Maywat Mag, who was one of their key defenders, along with Caleb McConnell, who I said, he was co-defensive player of the year last year. When Mag got hurt last year and missed the rest of the season, this team started to struggle. But anyway, so they lose McConnell to the pros. They lose Paul McCahey to Washington, and Cam Spencer to UConn. Spencer, great shooter. McCahey, really solid point guard, do a lot of different things. And those guys both transferred late in the process. So Rutgers didn't see that coming, apparently, and they lost those guys late. It was a real surprise around here. So who comes back? Mag comes back. Cliff Amore, big time shot blocker. He's the conference's leading returner and blocks per game at 2.1, also block percentage, and also defensive rating. So, guy's great shooter, great rim runner. He's got to work on his shot, something he's been trying to expand his game. Didn't have a lot of success with it last year. They also bring back Andre Hyatt, small forward. Derek Simpson showed some promise last year, and he's probably going to be playing a lot this year. And also power forward Antonio Wolfolk. By the way, I was texting with Cliff Omori yesterday, and he wants to be on the show. He's going to come join us.
Let's go
sometime in the future. So, all right. So who Rutgers is bringing in is their prize piece is top 50 recruit Gavin Griffiths, small forward, can shoot, can pass, pretty athletic. Noah Fernandez comes over, a point guard from UMass. Didn't have his best year under Frank Martin last year. And also Jemiah Williams comes over from Iowa State, though he never played at Iowa State. He transferred from Temple, had some trouble with the transfer, so he sat out last year, or he may have been hurt, actually. But anyway, in the meantime, he spent his free time gambling, and he got caught up in that gambling scandal that affected Iowa State, Iowa, and some others. And so he just accepted a plea bargain for those gambling charges. I haven't heard anything about affecting his eligibility, but we might want to put a kind of a question mark around him, because he hasn't been disciplined as of yet. Maybe he's not going to be. I don't know. Maybe they consider his legal penalty enough. I'm not sure. So, what do you think? What do you think of those Scarlet Knights?
Top 10 in the Big Ten. I think they're good. I mean, it's a program that's up and coming. Obviously, losing Mulcahy, and then you said they lost Cam Spencer was the other guy they lost in the process. Obviously, losing two guards so late in the process is going to be big. But I would look for Derek Simpson to have a pretty big year. I think Fernandez could get back to form.
Yeah.
Obviously it was a couple of years ago, but pre-COVID, he was like a 15 point per game.
Yeah.
Or kind of in that COVID shortened season.
That was like his freshman year, wasn't it?
Yeah. He was really good in the Big Ten that year.
So good as a freshman. He's never quite recaptured that. Yeah.
So I mean, I think the two of them are going to be good. If they had still had Cam Spencer and Mulcahy, that foursome in the backcourt would be so good with Mag on the wing. I can't believe Hyatt's back for year 6. On the wing, I bet Griffith starts. I think he's such a good three-point shooter from the outside, really versatile, plays both sides of the court pretty well. I actually think they could be good. I think they're going to be probably in that same range as Penn State and Iowa, pushing for a tournament berth, being one of the last teams in the Big Ten to get in, just depending on how the Big Ten cannibalizes itself during the season.
True. The thing that worries me is Cam Spencer and Paul Mulcahy were probably the two best players no one's ever heard of.
Sure.
And
Mulcahy was great.
Yeah, and I love Spencer.
Yeah.
And he could shoot. And he was so big for them last year. Cam Spencer was clutch. And I just don't know. This is a team that struggled to score at times with those guys. And so now I'm really worried. And obviously, living in the state, I have a fondness for Rutgers, but I'm not enthusiastic about this bunch. But Griffiths, he maybe he replaces the offense that Spencer brought, and maybe even brings more. I think he's still got a ways to go as a shot creator.
For sure.
We'll ask Cliff when we get him on the show. All right, so we'll move on to Wisconsin, and boy, Wisconsin brings back everybody, basically. The only player they lost was Jordan Davis, who's Johnny Davis's, I guess he's his younger brother?
Yeah.
Or is he his older brother? I think he might be his older brother, because Johnny Davis, I don't know, it doesn't matter. He's his brother. Anyway, he's gone, but that's no consequence, really. He didn't play super well for them. And so they bring back all kinds of good players. Chucky Hepburn, the point guard, comes back. He's lost some weight, by the way. Chucky was a little chunky, but he's dropped some weight this year, so he should be there. Should be more athletic. And he's the conference's leading returner in steals per game at 1.5. You got Tyler Wall, good scrappy forward. You may have noticed Tyler when they beat Kansas last year. He was a key, or they took Kansas to overtime. I don't know if they beat them, but they gave Kansas a hell of a battle. I believe in that tournament that's played at that big resort on the island in the
Atlantis.
Yeah, in Atlanta, Battle Atlantis. They were down there, and Wisconsin gave somebody a hell of a time down there. It was Kansas, I believe. They also bring back Stephen Kroll, really underrated center. He can shoot it. He can rebound. He can score in the post. Connor Essegian comes back, shooting guard. He is the conference's leading returner for three-pointers made, 69, only shot 36% though. They also bring back shooting guard Max Kleinschmidt, forward Carter Gilmore, and point guard Kamari McGee. That's 7 key players returning. And then they bring in AJ Storr, who really is a offense. He's a pure scorer with no conscience. I was surprised he went to Wisconsin. Doesn't seem like his type of program, but maybe he wants to be more disciplined. And that should be interesting because he's definitely a gunner. And they also bring in 2 top 150 freshmen in center Gus Yalden, who's also dropped a lot of weight, by the way, 40 pounds, I believe. And
Big Gus Golden fan.
All right. And Nolan Winter, another power forward. So this Wisconsin team looks like, they were pretty good last year. I think they're going to be better this year.
I think they probably could end up top 5 in the conference.
Yeah.
They really did not shoot well the second half of the season, and especially Tyler Wall. Like 2 years ago, he was shooting 51%. Yeah, and then he was hurt last year, and he was shooting down in the 40s, so like 10 to 15% lower than normal. And their big struggle last year, right, was like putting the ball in the hoop. And so I think the consistency of just bringing everybody back, I think Tyler Wall is going to take a step up or return to where he was. As you said, AJ Storr just puts the ball in the basket. Like, dude knows how to score. He gets buckets. It's going to be huge for them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I like this Wisconsin team. And it's going to be interesting to watch Storr in this discipline system.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so the next team is Nebraska, who was at the bottom of the conference last year, and they lose one of their better players, Sam Grissel, to the pros. They also lose Derek Walker to the pros, their center. Willem Breidenbach, who we talked about in our Pac-12 episode, moves on to Washington. Denham Dawson moves on to Tennessee State. He was a wing. And Oleg Kojenets, another center, pretty highly regarded as a freshman, but hardly played at Nebraska, moves on to Wyoming. Who comes back? All right. Issei Tamanaga returns at shooting guard along with Juwan Gary at forward. Also, C.J. Welcher returns on the wing. Jamarcus Lawrence returns at shooting guard, and Ramel Lloyd Jr. joins the team. He was a roughly top 100 recruit last year that redshirted. He's a point guard. So not a lot to be super excited about, but they do bring in some interesting pieces from the portal, including Bryce Williams, an excellent shooter, a small forward from Charlotte, Rank Mast, a power forward from Bradley, ultra productive at Bradley, really good rebounder, can shoot a little, can block some shots. Jerron Coleman joins the team from a shooting guard from Ball State. Aaron Eulis joins the team, a point guard from Iowa. Josiah Alalik, a power forward, joins from New Mexico. And lastly, they also have Eli Rice, a top 200 freshman forward, joining the team. So what do you think of Nebraska's chances? I'm not overly excited about this group. They do have some interesting pieces.
Have you heard any updates on the potential of Ulyss and the gambling scandal? I actually don't know. I'm
I
curious.
have not, and
Okay.
that applies to the kid at Rutgers as well.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that they're okay, or we would have heard something. Maybe they get a slap on the wrist in terms of suspension, but I haven't heard anything yet.
Legally, I just think you got a fine. It's just
Right.
kind of comes down to the NCAA, and they're not necessarily quick on making decisions.
This is true. This is true. They have, though, recently kind of let the teams do more policing.
Yeah.
Because the team, a lot of conferences and teams have been suing them. So, yeah.
And I do think like a benefit for Nebraska here is his sports betting didn't happen when he was at Nebraska, right? It happened at Iowa, not at Nebraska.
That's correct.
I mean, I'm intrigued as far as them maybe just like, I don't know, getting some tough wins. Even if Ulyss doesn't play, like I do think the backcourt of Ramel Lloyd Jr., who I believe came out of Sierra Canyon, really intriguing passer at 6'6". Like I think he's going to be able to see the court pretty well. I think the backcourt of him and Tominga could be pretty interesting. And a lot of the guys they brought in were productive-ish Division I players. A couple of them averaged close to 9, 10, 11 points. Like I think that bodes well for being able to fit into a system. And they clearly have a hierarchy with Tominga and Juwan Gary kind of being the leaders of the team. I know it is secret scrimmage season, and I've heard some interesting good things about Nebraska kind of behind the scenes. I think Tominga looks really good. They've been Tominaga, sorry, looks really good. And they've even been able to be competitive in a couple of those scrimmages without him, which I think bodes well. But again, like bodes well for what? I think bodes well to like maybe win a game in the Big Ten tournament. And I think that's going to be about it. I do think Tominaga is a dark horse candidate to win the Player of the Year in the conference if Zach Edey doesn't. If there's like voter fatigue, maybe some of the downsides of Purdue kind of comes true and some of the pieces that Nebraska brings in really hits, maybe he's got a pretty good chance to win. Like I just think a guard with the ball in his hands that shoots well off the dribble, I think that really bodes well for the storyline aspect of who can win the conference, and he's definitely going to score. So I think they're interesting. I don't think they're like Sweet 16 interesting.
Right. Tominaga was really good at World Cup. Juwan Gary is a solid player. Wiltshire runs hot and cold. Bryce Williams is an excellent shooter. And Mast averaged about 14 points a game last year, and he shot 35% from deep, and he also averaged over 8 rebounds a game. And then Coleman averaged around 14 points per game and shot about 35% from 3. So, this team kind of reminds me of Cal when we were doing the Pac-12, and we kind of said, they got 5, 6 good players, and they could be very competitive in a lot of games. But I don't think they have most of their players don't have the upper ceiling that some of Cal's.
Sure.
Do. So, yeah. But
and one of the things I think I told you before we hopped on recording this is I think the Big Ten is one of the deeper Big Five conferences. And honestly, like this is the reason. Like Nebraska is going to finish somewhere probably between 10th, 11th, and 12th in the conference. And they also have like a conference player of the year candidate. And they've got 5, 6 solid Division I players. They've got 3 or 4 guys that can shoot the long ball. Like I don't know. Does the ACC have that? Does the Pac-12 have that? As far as teams that are going to be spicy, that are finishing 10th, 11th, and 12th? Probably not. And I think that bodes well for the conference and for Nebraska being able to take a couple of victories that we didn't foresee happening.
Right. And when we talked to Mike DeCourcy last year at the end of March Madness, that was his argument of why the Big Ten doesn't do well in the tournament, because even the worst team in the conference is still a pretty darn good team. And you got to bring it every night. And Yeah, and by the time you get done doing that,
You're just brutalized.
yeah, right. All right, so we'll move on to Ohio State, and their biggest loss, though he might have not, he didn't play for them all of the entire last season, and that's Bryce Sensabaugh. Moves on to the NBA. There was some thought he might come back, but unfortunately for Ohio State, he did not. Justin Sewing, a solid wing, moves on to the pros. Sean McNeil, a great shooting guard, moves on to the pros. Isaiah Likely, a really good perimeter defender at point guard, moves on to the pros. Tanner Holden, a wing, moves on to Wright State. And Eugene Brown, the third, moves forward, moves on to Georgia Southern. The last two of those six guys did not play a ton last year. So who comes back? Bruce Thornton, who really turned it on at the end of the year when Ohio State made their run in the Big Ten tourney. Also, his backcourt running mate, Roddy Gale, also returns. They were both freshmen last year. Zed Key, who missed some time and played hurt a lot last year with a shoulder injury. He's back at center. And his backup, Felix Okapara, also returns. So those are four really nice pieces. So who comes in to join these guys? Of course, Jamison Battle, who we interviewed for this show. Great shot creator, great scoring wing. Should be, didn't play his best last year, but I expect him to resume that, go-to scores and be, 15, 16, 17, 18 a night kind of guy. Point guard Dale Bonner comes in from Baylor. Evan McCaffrey, a wing, comes in from Penn State. And then they have three top 50 recruits coming in. Tyson Chapman, a combo guard, Devin Royal, a forward, and Scotty Middleton, a wing. Chapman is banged up right now, so that he's not going to be immediately available.
I mean, one of my hometown teams, Ohio State, super excited about them. They played the University of Dayton actually in a scrimmage the other evening. Not everybody played. They didn't play everybody a ton, but Bruce Thornton went 4 of 5 from the 3-point line, which I think really bodes well for some of his development. I think their season kind of hinges on the development of those backcourt guys, Thornton and Gale, which I think got a lot of run last year. They looked pretty good towards the end of the season, and a lot of the reason they just lost was they just played a lot of the young guys a lot. And right. Holtman kind of lean into that youth movement. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see what kind of dividends pays off for them. Bringing in Jamison Battle, Dale Bonner, Mahaffey kind of gives them some of that veteran leadership that I think can be really good. I really like Battle and Bruce Thornton leading the team in scoring, being kind of the calming presence on the courts. I'm a big fan of some of their freshmen. Devin Royal, I think he won back-to-back Gatorade Player of the Years in the state of Ohio, and at least one state title, if not two. Scotty Middleton, I think, is a particularly underrated wing. Like, honestly, he finished his senior year 50th, and I'm actually, or maybe, yeah, he finished 60th in the country as a recruit, and I'm honestly pretty surprised. If we go back to May of 2022 and we look at his recruiting rankings, he was all the way up at 30th. And then as the recruiting rankings kind of came out over the rest of his senior season, he kept dropping. And I'm not particularly sure why. I think he does lots of things really well. I think he could be a potential fifth starter for them from day one. I don't know who started in the scrimmage the other day, but I really like his versatility on both sides of the court. I think he's got a potential to be like a pump and catch guy off the dribble, a second side action guy. I think they're a little weak down low, and unless Jamison Battle and Bruce Thornton really jump into the like player of the year conversation, maybe they lack some of that high end talent. But man, I think this is a really solid team all the way around. I think they probably make it to the NCAA tournament. I would honestly be surprised if they don't. But I think there's a lot to like for this team coming in this year.
I agree. I'm very high on Ohio State. And, I was talking to their SID before Sensabaugh made up his decision. And I told him, I said, you know what? If Sensabaugh comes back, you guys are going to the Final Four. But
Wow.
he didn't. And, Thornton and Gale made so much progress throughout the season. That's a solid backcourt. And then you add the freshman Chapman and Bonner to that mix. So the backcourt is in great hands. At center, you have Zed Key, who's proven solid year in, year out. And Okapara, is a better defender, a better rim protector. So you kind of got the center position ironed out. Battle's going to give you points at the one forward spot. So then it's just, can somebody like Royal or Middleton or even Mahaffey, can they turn out to be another solid starter to complement all the other guys on the wing? And then I think you're in really good shape. But I think, this team does lack some size beside Key and Akpara. So that's why I'm thinking Royal, his minutes might be crucial.
Do you think they start Battle and Mahaffey and then bring the freshman Royal and Middleton off the bench? Or do they start Battle and a freshman so that they can bring off Mahaffey as kind of the 3-4 combo off the bench?
I'm not sure. They also could go with 3 guards. They could bring Bonner in there and Battle and one of the centers, which is probably going to be Zed Key, unless he's not healthy for some reason. But either way, I really think this is a tournament team. Yes. I don't think it's a Final Four team by any stretch, unless the freshmen turn out to be, blockbusters. But but definitely think it's a tournament team.
Yeah.
All right, then we bring up poor Minnesota. Minnesota loses their 2 best players, and they finished last place last year, and they lose their 2 best players. The aforementioned Jamison Battle jumps to Ohio State, and Tylon Cooper moves on to South Carolina. They also lost Jaden Henley, a small forward, to DePaul. They do bring back a couple nice pieces. Dawson Garcia had a solid year for them last year, power forward. They also have Farrell Payne at center, and he's the conference's leading returner for field goal percentage at 69.3. They have Joshua Ola Joseph at forward, and they have Isaiah Einen coming back after missing basically 2 years. This was a very athletic, very good defender. Hasn't played in almost 2 years, but hopefully he's going to be okay. And so they got a lot of nice big pieces. The question is, what are they going to do at guard? They bring in Mike Mitchell, point guard from Pepperdine. He's a solid player. I think Mike Mitchell, you can pencil him in the starting lineup. They bring in Elijah Hawkins, a point guard from Howard, and they also have freshman wing Cameron Christie coming in. He was a top 150 guy. All in all, I think the biggest question with Minnesota here is, does this team have any hope of not finishing in the basement again?
Doubtful.
Right.
To be honest, I like some of the additions. I think Mitchell and Elijah Hawkins both could be really good. The problem is you're looking at like a 6'1" guard in Mitchell and a 5'11" guard in Elijah Hawkins. So, you can't play them together. Although both of them are about 40% three-point shooters, both of them pass the ball really well. So, even if there's some way you can stagger them, you are basically always going to have a really good shooting point guard on the court at all times. I like Cameron Christie. I'm really surprised Michigan State didn't go after him harder. But he's just a freshman, and he's a little on the slim side, and I don't think he's listed at 6'5", 160, so pretty small, and I don't think he's going to be able to provide much two-way versatility as a freshman. Man, yeah, outside of Mitchell, Hawkins, I like Dawson. I think Dawson Garcia could be interesting. I think Payne could be interesting. they don't have the depth. They don't really have the top end talent.
No.
I think the hope is, man, you can like develop maybe some of the young, like develop Christie, maybe develop any other young guy on the team to kind of set you up for the future. But that's about what you're looking for this year.
Yeah. Unless there's a lot of guys that we're not listing because, I mean, we don't list guys if they're not heavily recruited, or we don't list them if they haven't done much yet in college. And so maybe, they have a couple of hidden gems on the roster, but I'm not aware of them. By the way, I haven't weighed 160 pounds since I was 7. So
I think I was a freshman in high school, which is still a while ago, longer ago than I'd like to admit.
No, I joke. I weighed about 130, I think, when I was a freshman in college. But I was just joking around. I wish I was somewhere near that now. So I'm going to throw Pete's selections in here.
Sure.
Pete Horvath was supposed to be with us on the show. He couldn't arrange it, but he did a lot of research for us, and he also put in his predictions. So I'm going to say which team wins the conference, and I'll say Pete's picking Purdue. He likes their roster continuity, and he thinks that what gives them the edge. How about you, Caleb?
I'm going to go with Michigan State. To me, it's just the guards. I really think the guards stand out as head and shoulders the best in the conference. You've got that 3-guard rotation that we talked about with AJ Hoggard, Jaden Adkins, and Tyson Walker. And then I really like some of the young guys. Like I think Xavier Booker, Cohen Carr. I think Jeremy Fears could potentially even give them a spark off the bench. So the guards and then the mix of veteran leadership with that kind of that athleticism that freshman class is going to bring.
Yeah. I mean, Michigan State is so good that a lot of those really, 4 and 5-star freshmen might not even see the court much.
True.
So yeah, that's why I'm agreeing with you. I'm going with the Spartans. I think, Purdue should have another excellent season. Of course, all bets are off if something would happen to Edey. They have no way of replacing him, and he basically, everything centers around him. And they would probably be a 500 team without him. Maybe even worse. But going with Michigan State. All right. So how many at-large bids do we get in this tournament? So Pete says, with no explanation, he says Michigan State. Now keep in mind, he took Purdue as the automatic bid. So he says Michigan State, Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Maryland, and Indiana. I like those. I don't have an argument with any of those. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 7. Essentially the same 7. I think there's some interesting ones that could be kind of coming in behind. You've got Michigan, Iowa, Penn State, Northwestern, all could be interesting. But I think some of the ideas that we've talked about the Big Ten just being so tough, 1 to 10, 1 to 11, 1 to 12. I think some of those guys, some of those teams on the bubble are going to have a little too many losses overall, right? Like, are they going to be able to make up the wins out of conference? I don't know, but I do think in conference, they're going to kind of just eat themselves and cannibalize themselves and kind of maybe lose out on an extra bid or two because of that. Right.
Now, unlike you guys, you and Zach went with 5 in the Pac-12, and I went with 4. Here, I'm going with 8, while you and Peter are going with 7. So I went with, and I'm just reading these off because they're the same teams you guys picked. Yeah. But I'm just putting them in order. I thought about it. I would like Purdue first, or Michigan State first. Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Maryland, Indiana, in that order. So they're the 7. And then I picked an 8th, and that was Michigan. Now, I must admit, I'm really queasy about Michigan. I'm really queasy about whether I think they're going to get in. And I think, this team could get 7 bids. If it gets an 8th, I'm saying Michigan, but I think Iowa will be there in that mix. I think Penn State will be in there in that mix, and Northwestern will be in there as well. So, yeah. All right. So now, player of the year. Wow. Pete's surprising me. He said there's a lot of raw, high, exciting recruits, but I'm unsure if anyone can come in and disrupt the expected output of Zach Edey, especially if Purdue keeps winning. So yeah, he goes with Zach Edey, no surprise.
Yeah, I also have to go. I think it has to be Zach Edey. I think there's like a group of 3 or 4 behind him that I think could be really interesting. We talk about on-ball guards who can stretch the court. I think you look at Jameer Young with Maryland. You look at Boo Buie with Northwestern. You look at where is he?
Tominaga?
Yeah, Tominaga. I even would put Tyson Walker is kind of like my really sneaky pick.
Yeah,
just because best player, lead player on the best team. I think all 4 of those guys could be particularly interesting, especially going down the stretch. If 1 or 2 of those teams can get into the top 3. But man, unless Purdue bottoms out and unless the guards really don't show up or Edey gets hurt, it has to be
Edey. Yeah. Another guy I would throw in there, you said Bowie. He was on my short list of, runners up. Terrence Shannon of Illinois. I think he has a possibility. And I also, I'm not ruling out Kalel Ware. If he plays anywhere up to his potential, he could make things interesting, but I'll believe that while I see it. So I think Zach Edey is actually a pretty clear pick. Not just because of his unbelievably returning statistics, and he returns for the number 1 team in the conference last year, but there's nobody else that really stands out. Like when you talk about Tyson Walker, he also could go to Hogard or also could go to Atkins. There's just so many good players on Michigan State. So, all right. So before we wrap things up, we're gonna play an interview that I did with Coleman Hawkins a couple days ago. Of course, Coleman tested the draft waters last year, but decided to come back to Indiana for his senior season, and we'll hear what Coleman has to say about the Illini. Alrighty, our second guest today is Illinois' versatile forward Coleman Hawkins. Last season, Coleman averaged 9.9 points, 6.3 rebounds, 3.0 assists, 3 assists, 1.1 steals, and 1.2 blocks per game while shooting 44% from the floor. Coleman, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. So how was your summer? Do anything interesting, fun?
Yeah, I mean, just getting workouts in with NBA teams, and then got a little bit of time to go home, and then for the most part, I just came back to school. Had summer workouts, so I mean, besides the the NBA stuff, it was kind of just another regular summer, just in the gym doing our summer workouts.
So how was the experience at the combine and the interviews with the team? You had never tested the waters before, right? This was your first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it was cool. Definitely very grateful experience. I was very grateful to be there. It was kind of a long week with the combine. You only play two days, and then the rest of the time, you're kind of doing like interviews and like medical testing, things like that. But no, I was very grateful to go out there and talk with NBA teams, get feedback, pretty good feedback, and yeah, I thought it was a pretty cool process.
What kind of feedback did they give you?
They just told me basically I just need to shoot the ball more. They want to see me be more aggressive, shoot it at a higher clip. There was never any, negatives to anything that I've heard. So it's really kind of just, we want to see you shoot the ball, be more aggressive.
Beside the feedback they gave you, was there anything else you took away from the experience in kind of like, things you learned maybe that you weren't specifically told, but just from playing against guys, on your level where everybody was as good as you and,
yeah, I mean, not necessarily. I think, I kind of knew what I was getting into. I had a lot of agents kind of filling me in on on everything. And yeah, I mean, I had a dad who played basketball. Everything. It wasn't really like unfamiliar with me. I knew a lot of players in this year's draft. A lot of players that I knew or played against were in these workouts. So nothing was really, surprising to me. I think the biggest surprise was at the combine how much medical testing you do. Those last few days you're kind of just sitting around doing a lot of medical testing, things like that.
So does each team give you medicals?
I mean, just about. I think there was only one workout where I didn't do like a physical. So, but like you're always like doing a physical. You're always doing something. There's always something you got to do like before the workout. They're always making sure. So yeah.
Do they make you go through the drills again too, like the vertical and the shuttle?
Everyone made me do all of that.
I always assumed they had like one doctor who just gave information to everybody.
Nah, I mean, I guess not, because we were doing the same medical testing, really. Kind of the same, the vertical jumps. Some of my numbers compared to the combine were way different, because I was actually warmed up, ready to go. I didn't really get a warm up at the combine. But yeah, I mean, it was all kind of the same, do the shuttle drill, the sprints. Yeah, you kind of start with those things. So,
right. Your dad, Rodney, played at San Diego State in the late 80s. How has he influenced your development? It's not just as a basketball player, but as a person.
Yeah, I mean, he always has good insight on things, and he's never controlling. Like he never tries to make it about him. Everything's always been about me. You see, I'm not forced. I'm not in a San Diego State jersey right now, he's always been just good and positive about stuff. He's just always giving me good insight, good intel. He's always talking to people. He knows a lot of people. So he's just been really good for me, just a positive light, kind of just guiding that influence and making smart decisions. So,
yeah. So he didn't pursue, did he play professionally at all, or?
From what I was told, he doesn't talk about it, but from what I was told, he was good enough. If he could shoot the ball a little bit better, he probably would have been there. And then I guess he didn't tell me this because he doesn't like making excuses or anything. But I was told that before he had a workout with some NBA teams, he was playing pickup and messed up his ankle. So it kind of ruined his shot. But like I said, he doesn't really mention that to me because he doesn't like making excuses for his career or anything. But he had a good career, and he played in Germany and Finland, and he always talks about it. So he loved playing overseas. My mom loved being with him too. So
yeah, and it's funny. That has become, basketball has become so much popular in Europe. It's really a nice option for players, if they want to go that direction. Sometimes I heard Svi Mikhailuk is playing with the Celtics. He actually could have made more money in Europe this year than he could with the Celtics. But so basketball is definitely on the uprise in Europe. Coach Underwood, sometimes on the sidelines, he looks downright scary. What's he like off the court?
Coach Underwood is chill. You kind of just got to talk to him. He always throws in little jokes here and there, some jokes you can really laugh at. Some jokes you be like, did this old man really just say that? No, Coach Underwood is really cool. He's really chill. He's polar opposite when he's off the court. He's just super laid back, just like one of the guys. So yeah, he's chill.
Okay. That's kind of funny. I'm just trying to imagine, because probably I work with a bunch of young guys too on the show and so forth and the site, and they're probably saying, did that old guy just say that? So let's talk about the team a little bit, and bear with me for a sec, because I want to tell our listeners what's been going on with the Fighting Illini. So last season the team finished tied for 5th in the Big Ten, made the NCAA tournament for the 3rd straight year. However, you had a rough 8-9 matchup with Arkansas. I think you both should have been seeded higher, but anyway, you met in the first round, and you guys lost. And the players gone from last season's squad include Matthew Meyer, went to the NBA. Jaden Epps transferred to Georgetown. RJ Melendez transferred to Georgia. While you, Terrence Shannon, Dane Danger, Ty Rogers, Sincere Harris, Luke Goody, all are returning. And the newcomers include Marcus Damask, a transfer from Southern Illinois, Quincy Guerrier, a transfer from Oregon, and 2 pretty highly regarded freshmen in Amani Hansberry and Dre Gibbs Lawhorn. So in your opinion, you got some guys leaving, some guys coming in, but the core is, most of the core is still there. So how do you think this team is shaping up, and how would you compare it to last year's squad?
I don't necessarily want to compare the two, just out of respect for my previous teammates, but I will say that this year's team kind of grasps things just a little bit more. I think they're able to understand our concepts just a little bit better. I think there's kind of just a better basketball feel all around for this year's team, as far as putting in the work, understanding our concepts, putting in a whole new offense and understanding that, and just getting drills down quicker. Sometimes it takes us 3 or 4 times just to do a drill right one time, and then this year we can maybe mess up once and then we got it, or not mess it up at all. But I think it's just a better basketball feel, in a way. There's no unnecessary outside noise. There's nothing. So I think it's just a better basketball environment, really. And I think this year's team is going to be really solid, veteran team who can understand things more and do a little bit more, and it's because we can really understand what we need to do,
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, you got at least half a dozen guys who played significant minutes coming back. Marcus and Quincy are 5th-year guys. So, yeah, you would expect, everybody to be a little more mature, a little more experienced.
Mm-hmm.
On paper, now this is my opinion, the team would appear to have plenty of size, inside scoring, and defense. However, last year, point guard was a position of concern. For example, the team ranked near the bottom of the conference for assist percentage and turnover percentage. In fact, you led the team in assists. So right now, again, as an outsider, there doesn't seem to be a clear choice for point guard. So is there someone stepping up that I'm not aware of to take over that spot?
I mean, I think all we need is to get the ball up the court, and then once we're in our half court set, it's everybody in the action. So it's not necessarily a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think a lot of the times in this offense, I have the ball in my hands a lot closer to the basket, and we're kind of more strict on what we're doing when I have the ball. Last year's team would just be swinging me the ball up top, and everybody would kind of just no one knew what to do. I feel like last year I could have had a lot more assists if we were kind of more strict and people, kind of had the feel when to slip screens, when to cut, when to come to the ball, when to, I think this year's team has just a better feel for when to do those things. And we've been a lot more strict on what guys can and can't do, when to do it. And just having the ball closer to the basket in that, that mid post area, is a good thing too, because, I can face up, shoot it, if teams try to support. I'm in a scoring area. Like I said, I don't just have the ball trailing at the top of the key every time and we're kind of just standing around or someone's running at the ball, So I think it's just gonna be kind of everybody is going to get their opportunity to handle the ball. I don't necessarily think there's this guy's a point guard and he has the ball in his hands, you know?
Okay. I had some names in parentheses I thought you might say, and of course one was, Gibbs Lawhorn, the freshman, but Nico Moretti is a redshirt freshman. Is he his older brother? Is he play for Texas Tech?
Mm-hmm.
Can't think of his name. Started with a D.
Yeah, I don't know his brother's name, but I know his brother played.
Okay, all right. So I recognized the name already, and then I saw he was from Italy. So I wondered if they were brothers. Okay, so you mentioned your role, and you said you think it's going to be changing slightly. One thing I thought of that I didn't see a ton of last year was you used in the pick and roll. And the reason I bring that up is I'd say, according to Synergy, you ran the pick and roll personally about once per game. And I was thinking, not only could you pick and pop, but on the short roll with your passing ability, you could be deadly in the short roll. But one thing I was thinking is maybe you weren't utilized that way last year because of a lack of shooting. But this year, I'm thinking you should have more with a healthy Luke Goody and Marcus on the team, that you're going to have more options to kick it out to the corner, for example. So is that something you guys have talked about at all?
Yeah, for sure. They're going to use me in a lot more pick and roll actions, puts more stress on the defense. And then we saw kind of late in the year that I could score around the rim. There's times where teams were switching. I would just pick and pop.
Right.
I never really got post up opportunities, and I feel like I'm a great post scorer. So yeah, I'll definitely be picking and rolling a lot more. We'll play the high lows, kind of what we did with Kofi. Just play the high lows, and I'll be able to finish around the rim. And those are honestly, I feel like if I did those things last year, I could average about 15 points. I never till late got post-up opportunities. We saw in the Penn State game, I had 17 points off of post-up. So just kind of playing in those pick and roll actions, put more stress on the defense. We got like Luke Goody, Marcus Domas, Quincy shaking behind. I think it will give us more opportunities to shoot the ball better, put more stress on the defense. So, and then teams won't be able to switch those ball screens anymore like what they did last year. You saw the Wisconsin game when they were playing in drops and I hit 6 threes, and then the very next game, the rest of the year, it was just switch that ball screen because I was going to pick and pop the whole time. So
right. So of the new guys, is there one particular person who has stood out to you and you said, this person is definitely gonna. I don't want to. I know you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but is there one person that's really kind of stood out, especially as a shooter? Because that was an area where you guys were lacking last year.
Not necessarily as a shooter. I mean, everybody's shooting the ball pretty well right now. We're shooting the ball at a high clip right now. But I mean, I can't necessarily say because, the ball feels different when you play in front of 15,000 every night. So I'll say one person who stuck out to me so far who kind of has been grasping things well and has been playing well is Amani Hansberry. Amani's, he listens. He's not hard-headed. Every time you got something to tell him, he's always listening, and he goes out and does it. So he's kind of undersized at the 5 spot right now, but I think he's kind of stood his ground and rebounded the ball well, and made his presence felt, defensively and scoring around the rim a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm not saying Amani's going to be a starter for us right away or anything like that, but I think he can definitely help us this year and come in and give us some minutes and have an impact on the rebounding and defensive end. And yeah, I think he's just one player he's worked extremely hard and he's got his body right. And I think he's gonna do well because he listens. So
right. So all in all, we've been talking about the team for a while, and I wanted to ask you, and you've probably already answered this, but I'll throw it at you again. You guys have made the tournament 3 years in a row, but you haven't gotten past the round of 32. So is there one particular thing about this team you think, you know what, this year I think we're going to get to the Sweet 16 or maybe even beyond? Is there something? You mentioned the experience and the way they seem to get things quicker because of the experience. So, but is there any other factor?
Yeah, I think being able to play multiple defenses, I think playing in multiple different actions. I think from my 3 years, besides my freshman year, because I thought we had a really good team that was Final Four. That was a Final Four team. We just got caught that weekend, but I think we kind of been those last 2 years. We kind of been stuck on kind of running the same offense, very predictable offense. I mean, last year's team it was kind of unstructured offensively, and we kind of couldn't. We were too indecisive with our switching. We were too indecisive what we were doing defensively. And it's not on the coaches or anything. I think we just had guys who just didn't know what they were doing. My sophomore year, I think our offense was just very predictable. And we only had one defense, and it was guard your man. And if there's a ball screen, you're playing in a drop. But I think this year's team has the capability of understanding our switching. We can blitz ball screens. We can get the ball out of people's hands. We can play in drops if we need to. And then offensively, I think we can put guys in multiple different actions. We have multiple different ball handlers. Kind of use me in pick and roll, pick and pop. So I think there's just a lot more things that we can do that can make it difficult for teams, later on when we play. So for sure,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you can see that. I mean, you got a lot of guys that could do. I mean, Quincy Guerrier is a good example. I mean, he could probably play anywhere between a 3 and a 5. You could probably play anywhere between a 3 and a 5. Marcus could probably play anywhere between a 2 and a 4. And I know you don't like to put numbers to it, but I'm just trying to give the listeners a sense of their size and ability in terms of athleticism. And that's always the way I kind of think, because I'm an old guy.
A lot of our stuff is interchangeable too. So, I mean.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. You guys are. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. All right. Mike DeCourcy, do you know Mike from the Big Ten Network?
I'm sure if I saw who that was, but
okay. Well, he does the bracketology for Fox Sports, and he also is a commentator in the studio for the Big Ten Network. Anyway, he was on the show after the tournament last year, and he's a Big Ten guy, and he said on this show he thought the conference had struggled in recent seasons due to a rigorous schedule. He basically said you guys beat each other up and you run out of gas at the end of the season. What do you think of that theory?
I don't know. I mean, if we're being honest, I don't think the Big Ten was the best conference last year. I think it was the Big 12, and I thought the Big 12 has done fine. I mean, I think we just have been getting popped. I don't think there's anything to it. I think we do have the best conference as far as basketball wise, the environment in which we play in. But I just think we've been getting popped, honestly. I don't think there's anything behind us beating up on each other all year. I think it's literally just we've been getting beat. you know?
Right. No. I mean, that's a distinct possibility. I think what he was thinking, and I mean, I follow college basketball as closely as anybody in the country. And I think the one thing about the Big Ten that's different from other conferences is even the worst placed team is not an easy out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, I think that's the difference. When you get down to the bottom of the ACC or any other conference, the poor, and maybe the Big 12 last year was that way, but they only had 10 teams. But I think this year it's not going to be that way because they're going to have more teams. But anyway, I'm digressing.
And I'll say this too. I think a lot of Big Ten teams, the play style on defense, like a lot of it is keeping stuff out the paint. And a lot of times I think, we give up a lot of threes in the Big Ten. Our defensive scheme, we don't like giving up threes. We like keeping stuff 2-on-2. And I think a lot of times, a lot of Big Ten teams have like that nail support and a late closeout. So there's a lot of catch and shoot, step in threes. And yeah, like I said, I think we've just been getting popped. I don't think it's anything to do with like wear and tear or beating up on each other necessarily. I think it's just we've been getting popped. So,
right. Well, Mike and I have a lot of arguments, so I'm going to say, well, Coleman Hawkins says. All right, Coleman, I want to appreciate your time. I know you've had probably a ton of interviews this week already with Big Ten Media Day, so I appreciate you taking the time. And I wish you and the team the best this season. And please come back maybe at the end of the season, especially if you're going to test the waters. If you're going to test the waters, you got to come back at the end of the season.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, that'll be cool. We'll see what happens.
All right, buddy. Hope you have a great season.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Coleman. All right, Caleb. It was great talking to Coleman. And you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up the Big Ten show?
Just I love seeing the secret scrimmage notes. I think it's a lot of fun that everybody pretends it's a secret, and I'm excited for the season to get started.
Right. I hear you. All right. As always, I want to thank all of our listeners, and I want to thank our special guests, Coleman Hawkins and Jamison Battle, for joining us. If you ever miss an episode, you can get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. We'll be back soon with another conference preview, and I'm not sure which one it's going to be, but I know there's only 4 left: ACC, SEC, Big East, and Big 12. So I believe it's either going to be the Big 12 or the ACC. Yes, definitely it's going to be one of those two will be our next episode. And that will be coming out soon. We'll see you, folks. Take it night, Caleb.
Good night.